Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Westminster Group PLC Annual General Meeting. Throughout this recorded meeting, attendees will be in listen-only mode. I'd now like to hand over to Chairman Sir Tony Baldry. Good morning, sir.
So, order. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Westminster House for the Annual General Meeting of the Westminster Group PLC. For those who may not know me, I am Sir Tony Baldry, Chairman of the group. It is now past 11 o'clock and I can see there are at least two shareholders present, so I declare the meeting open and declare the meeting to be quorate. Before turning to the formal part of the meeting, can I just mention a few housekeeping notes? Please, we will make sure that our mobiles are on silent mode or switched off. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if a fire alarm sounds, please proceed in an orderly manner to the roadside area outside these premises. If and when you wish to speak, please await my acknowledgement. Please state your name, state whether you're a shareholder, proxy, or corporate representative before proceeding to speak. And you may have noticed that we organised some demonstrations of some of our technology that we're deploying around the world, and our staff will be delighted to demonstrate these systems to you after the formal part of the meeting. And I'm also glad to say that refreshments will be available at the end of the meeting for those who are here. Unfortunately, Peter Fowler, our Chief Executive Officer, can't be with us today simply because a few days ago, Peter underwent an operation on his back. I'm glad to report that the operation was successful, and Peter is now recovering well, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But can I introduce the rest of my board? So starting from my immediate far right is Roger Worrell, Company Secretary. Then next to Worrell is Mark Hughes, the Chief Financial Officer. Then to my immediate right is Stuart Fowler, our Chief Operations Officer. And then next to me this way is Simon Barrell, Non-Executive Director and Chair of the Audit Committee. And to my far left, Major General Graham Binns, who is a Non-Executive Director. You'll have seen from our announcement on Wednesday, the 20th of June, that as of today, Mauli Ababayo is retiring from the board to concentrate on his own other business activities. Can I personally, and on behalf of the board, express our appreciation for Mauli's dedication and hard work over the past few years. Maul has made a positive contribution to the group, and he has been a valued board member, and I'm delighted, therefore, that he will remain with us as part of our advisory board. You will have also seen that from the announcement as of the day I'm moving to become non-executive chairman as part of our restructuring program. Following the company's recently announced results for 2022, which showed a greatly improved position, we are currently looking at further restructuring measures to streamline the business with a view to improving profitability whilst maintaining maximum future growth potential. It may well be helpful if I just remind this annual general meeting of the membership of the board committees. The audit committee is chaired by Simon, comprises myself, Graham Binns, and Roger Worrell as secretary. The remuneration committee is chaired by Simon Barrell and is comprised of myself and Graham Binns and Roger Worrell as secretary. The risk committee reports to the audit committee and is chaired by Peter Fowler and comprises Stuart Fowler, Mark Hughes, heads of departments, Joanna Fowler, Hamish Russell, Lorraine Helland, and Roger Worrell as secretary. The nominations committee is chaired by Graham Binns and comprises myself, Simon Barrell, Peter Fowler, and Roger Worrell as secretary. And the disclosure committee is chaired by myself and comprises of Peter Fowler, Mark Hughes, Stuart Fowler, Simon Barrell, Graham Binns, and Roger Worrell as secretary. Can I introduce Richard Cambridge at the back of the Link Group of companies who are our registrars? So I will now start the formal proceedings of this annual general meeting. Notice of this meeting, containing the resolutions set out in full, together with the explanatory notes, was sent to shareholders on the 31st of May. Therefore, the requisite notice of this meeting has been given. I therefore propose, with your consent, the notice of this meeting has been taken as read and agreed. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Voting procedures. The voting today will be conducted on a show of hands unless a poll is demanded. May I remind you that ordinary shareholders who are present here in person or by corporate representatives are entitled to one vote on a show of hands. A proxy may exercise all or any of the appointing members' rights to attend, speak and vote at this meeting, whether on a show of hands or on a poll. If more than one joint member is present, the vote of the senior should be accepted. Seniority should be determined by the order in which the names stand in the company's register of members, and only the senior member should vote. To comply with best practice, I would like to inform members that the number of proxy votes for each resolution and item on the agenda to be considered today has been calculated by the company's registers. And when I come to read those out, I'm going to, for the convenience of the AGM, just round them up to the nearest million, because otherwise, it gets very complicated when one's doing sort of 900,032. I mean, I think, that the figures are fairly clear. I think more helpful if I just do it in terms of millions. I will inform the proxy votes which have been cast at the time of the voting on each resolution. And if a proxy was present and has been duly appointed by different shareholders to vote in different ways, the proxy will have one vote for and one vote against the resolution. So, with your permission, I will now proceed by dealing with questions relating to each resolution immediately before that resolution is put to the meeting. While we are conducting the formal business of the meeting, could I remind you please to restrict your questions to matters concerning the resolution under consideration only. Once we've concluded the formal business of the meeting, there'll be an opportunity for you to put questions to the board on matters outside the formal business of the meeting. And before asking your questions, please give your name and state whether you're a shareholder, proxy, or corporate representative. If you're a proxy or corporate representative, please state your name and the name of the shareholder you're representing. Now, I also ask that questions are kept to the point, and that where a question becomes a statement, the shareholder then writes to the board with it. Now, I also remind you, as a public company, there could be questions we cannot answer, as the information could be considered to be inside information. So, I will now formally propose the resolutions of the meeting. The full text of each of the resolutions is set out in the notice of the meeting, a copy of which you will have received. Resolutions 1 to 8 are proposed ordinary resolutions. This means that for each of these resolutions to be passed, more than half of the votes cast must be in favour of the resolution. Resolution 9 is proposed as a special resolution. This means that for this resolution to be passed, at least 75% of the votes cast must be in favour of the relevant resolution. And I would like to inform the room that I hold proxies in respect of a total of just over 65 million ordinary shares for each of the resolutions, 65,125,580 to be exact. So resolution 1 is to receive and adopt and approve the company's financial statements and reports to the directors and auditors for the year ended the 31st of December. I hold proxies in respect of ordinary shares for this resolution, of which 60 million votes are in favour of the resolution, 2 million votes against the resolution, and 2 million votes are withheld. So before putting the resolutions to the meeting, may I ask, are there any questions on the annual report and financial statements or the directors or auditors' reports? Yeah.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Farooq Dubash and I'm a shareholder.
Yeah.
Although my shares are held with the company.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, should I ask the question regarding the annual report after the resolutions are passed? Or not?
No. If you have a question about the annual report, please ask it now.
Okay. I refer to page 10 of the annual report, where there was mention of Scanport. And I'm just wondering if, I was hoping Peter Fowler would be able to give an update on what's happening since the date of the annual report.
Okay. So I'm going to play this back, Farooq, because for those listening online. So Farooq, who's a shareholder, has asked a question in respect of page 10 of the annual report in relation to Scanport. And I'm going to ask Stuart Fowler, as Chief Operating Officer, to comment on where we're at with Scanport.
Yes. So Scanport it's obviously an ongoing negotiation that we have with them, and so we can't be too detailed about where we are with them. And, we don't want to jeopardize any negotiations by putting things into the public domain. So we are in negotiation. We do have a settlement figure in our mind, and that's what we're aiming for. And we will update the market when we get some concrete news that we can give. But there's no further news other than was in the annual report.
Yeah. May I ask another question?
Go for it, yeah.
Regarding the independent auditor's report, I noticed that basically the main problem that the independent auditor has is the recovery of, let's say, debts. Having worked in Africa myself for some time, I know that it's quite difficult to sometimes recover these debts. And he's particularly mentioned three of them. I don't know where they are. Westminster Aviation, Westminster International, and Sovereign. These are all intercompany debts, I gather.
Okay, so Farouk asks, in relation to the independent auditor's report, the difficulties of the recovery of debt, highlights three debts within the annual report that may be intercompany debts. Mark, would you like to answer that question?
I think the auditors have outlined that what you've just said, you've worked in Africa, you know that it can be a difficult place. As far as I am concerned, there is no real difficulty with any of our debts at all. It is just that it is a much more risky debt profile than you might do if you were selling into England. And that's what they're trying to get over.
I think the three debts that you mentioned are intercompany debts.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's the intercompany with the trading subsidiaries.
Yeah.
One more comment, if I may, Chairman. I remember quite a few AGMs ago in London, maybe one of the first ones, I don't know. I did ask about bad debts, and I was told then that the only debt that could be bad was an old legacy one. I can't remember which one. All the others wouldn't be debts because the airlines paid in advance. Now, obviously, this hasn't happened since. Am I right there?
Do you want to repeat the question, then I'll answer?
Yeah, okay. So the question that Farouk has asked really is about bad debts and what bad debts does the company have? Roger, Mark.
Right. Well, I'm not sure why they said the airlines paid in advance, because they do not pay in advance. Because you can't know what passenger got on the plane until there. So whatever that information was, that is wrong. But these are major airlines, and yes, we do have a trickle of very small immaterial amounts. You always do in a business, but in general, all of our debts are good. They're with strong carriers like Air France, Brussels, and that. There are some, you're right, there is one or two airlines that have ceased the route that have been there for a long time in the debtors, and we're gradually working through and either collecting them or writing them off. But these are trivial.
Okay. I now propose that the annual report and financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2022, together with the director's report and auditors' reports, be received. So could you please raise your hand to vote? Those in favour? Those against? I think that resolution is carried. Resolution 2 concerns the reappointment of Mr. Stuart Fowler as a director of the company. Stuart Fowler is retiring in accordance with the company's articles of association and being eligible offers himself for re-election at this AGM, and the board has recommended that Mr. Stuart Fowler be reappointed as a director of the company. Before putting the resolution, I shall be pleased to answer any questions you may have in relation to the re-election of Mr. Stuart Fowler as a director of the company. I now propose resolution 2 of the reappointment of Mr. Stuart Fowler as the director of the company. I hold proxies in respect of ordinary shares for this resolution, of which 50 million plus votes are in favour of the resolution, 9 million votes plus votes against the resolution, and 2 million votes plus votes are withheld. So those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 3 proposes to reappoint PKF Littlejohn LLP as auditor of the company until the conclusion of the next annual general meeting, at which the financial statements are laid before the company. Before putting the resolution, I should be pleased to answer any questions you may have in relation to the reappointment of PKF Littlejohn LLP as company auditor. I now propose Resolution 3 to reappoint PKF Littlejohn LLP as company auditor. I hold proxies in respect of ordinary shares for this resolution, of which 60 million plus votes are in favour of the resolution, 2 million votes plus are against the resolution, and 2 million plus votes were withheld. So please raise your hand to vote. Those in favour, those against, I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 4 proposes the authorisation of the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors. And before putting this resolution, I shall be pleased to answer any questions you may have on the authorisation of the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors. I now propose Resolution 4, the authorisation of the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors. I hold proxies in respect of ordinary shares for this resolution, of which 60 million plus votes are in favour of the resolution, 2 million votes plus are against the resolution, and 2 million votes plus are withheld. So those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 5 proposes as an ordinary resolution to authorise the directors to allot relevant securities up to an aggregate nominal amount of £109,000, which represents approximately 33% of the current issued share capital. Before putting the resolution, I should be pleased to answer any questions you may have on the authorisation of the directors to allot relevant securities. I now propose Resolution 5 to authorise the directors to allot relevant securities. I hold proxies in respect of ordinary shares for this resolution, of which 59 million plus votes are in favour of the resolution, 3 million plus votes against the resolution, and 2 million plus votes are withheld. Those in favour? Those against? I declare the resolution carried. Resolution 6 proposes to disapply the statutory preemption rights under the Companies Act 2006 and gives the directors power to make issues for cash otherwise than to existing shareholders on a preemptive basis up to a maximum nominal amount of £66,000, which represents approximately 20% of the current issued share capital. Before putting this resolution, I should be pleased to answer any questions you may have on the authorisation of the directors to allot relevant securities. I now propose Resolution 6 to disapply the statutory preemption rights under the Companies Act 2006. As this is a special resolution, a 75% majority will be required. I hold proxies in respect of ordinary shares for this resolution, with 54 million plus votes are in favour of the resolution, which is 86%, so well over the 75%. 8 million votes against the resolution and 2 million votes are withheld. Those in favour? Those against? I think that resolution is carried. So, friends, that concludes the formal business of this meeting, and we now have time to take any questions from shareholders. So, are there any questions? Yeah, Andy.
Hi, Andy Giblin, shareholder. It's been reported in some of the media that there's a Turkish company called Milvest who are apparently trying to do some negotiation for works at Nigel Airport, which possibly borders on some of what we've been doing or plan to do there in the DRC. Are you able to comment as to whether that you feel that will impact us and at that stage where they are with that?
Sure. So the questions regarding Turkish company looking to do work in DRC at the airports there. I mean, clearly we have eyes on the ground. We try to know what's happening. Our current view is that it's not going to affect our contract. There are always companies chasing around trying to find work. We do have a contract, as everybody knows. I know it's been a long time coming. but the contract is signed, so we're not negotiating the contract. What we're waiting for is the ratification of that contract. So we are as secure as we can be in that contract. And
there was also reportedly that there was a request from the client to renegotiate part of that, bringing it down from 20 to 10 years. Were you able to comment on whether anything happened?
There have been negotiations over the period, and we have, renegotiated the contract, but it's not been significantly detrimental to us.
Yeah, true.
Could you explain a little bit about the rationale of selling one of the companies for £1 to I can't remember his name.
Mowley.
Mark?
Yeah. The company itself, which was Westminster International Ghana, was solely associated with Scanport project, which is no longer going forward. It would have been a financial liability to us to keep it, and therefore Mowley was kind enough to say he would just take it off our hands and deal with it.
Yeah, Ruth. No.
Just thought of it. I know it's perhaps a silly question, but when do you think that the share price might reach this 26 that we're all waiting for you to exercise the share of selling shares?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for the board is what information can we put into the marketplace and when. And as we've seen, I mean, DRC is a very good example of a contract actually being signed, negotiated and signed and agreed. And there always seems to be just a bit more needs to be done. And we are dealing, a large part of our work is in emerging markets. But all I would say is I think we have at the moment we have an extremely good pipeline of projects coming along. And I would be personally extremely disappointed if by the AGM this time next year, we hadn't reported a number of projects. Okay, but exactly when they will come online, whether it's difficult to exactly predict. That great House of Commons response that ministers always give, that wonderful word "shortly." Okay, and but I genuinely anticipate that there will be some positive news shortly. And as I indicated in my earlier comments, I mean, what is important for this board is ensuring the profitability of the company. So I think during the course of this year, we're wanting to do two things simultaneously. One is get more contracts over the line, and secondly, doing a root and branch examination of everything we do, how we operate and so on, to ensure that everything we do is as cost effective as possible to try and enhance profitability. Yati.
Over the last few years, we've had a number of contracts expected to happen, potential stall. Are you able to give any general information around as to what the issues are and the complexity of these contracts as to why they are so difficult to get over the line?
Yeah, I think it's. I think what is sort of generic in emerging markets is they tend simply to be machinery of government issues. So which ministry is in the lead, which ministers need to approve a contract, and all of that tends to take time. Who needs to approve an MOU? We then do the gap analysis and the contract negotiation. So it is just, I mean, it was before I join the company, but I'm told that the contracts for Sierra Leone, for example, took 5 years to negotiate. It's been very successful ever since, but it took a long time to negotiate. And I think that's just a reflection of the marketplaces in which we operate. But, these are marketplaces which we're proud to operate in. And when we get contracts, they are, significant contracts, and they're long-term contracts, and they have a very real value to us. I don't think there is any, there's no inherent difficulty with us. I mean, there's no inherent problem in the Westminster Group in these. This is really us seeking to engage with governments which sometimes have their own internal tensions and challenges of how machinery government can produce decisions.
I think also I was going to add that we've talked about, we hope to achieve a couple, one or two, which we've said over the last couple of years. The ones that we've been hopeful of are not dead. They haven't gone away. So we are still hopeful of winning those. They are taking longer than planned. And as Tony said, working in Africa is a difficult environment. But they are still there. So we haven't lost them. And we have over the time added more. So we're building a sort of a bigger bank of potential projects, any one of which we could get in. So I think, the opportunities are there, and it's just, spending that time that we need to get them across. Now, obviously, COVID and things that happened, that it delayed certain projects that were going on. So, we've come out of that. We've come out of that strong last year, with a break-even position, and we've got a good foundation now to hopefully win those jobs and produce the profitability that we need to raise the share price.
Is there a risk that the gap analysis sometimes becomes almost like free consultancy to the client?
So the gap analysis, it could be. We're fairly careful with our gap analysis in that we don't do a real detailed gap analysis. So what we talk about is we do an overview gap analysis. We spend a couple of days in the airport. We understand. It's fairly easy to see with a walk around with a tour what's failing. You can see where security isn't being run properly, the pat down's not being done, the equipment's not working. We can do it, but we always say actually what it needs is a thorough, in-depth risk analysis, and that would take weeks, and that will be one of the first things we do when we get into contracts. So the gap analysis allows us to say, okay, we understand what the airport needs from an overview. We can therefore price that project. But what it really needs is a detailed risk analysis to do it properly.
And does the distance between us and the client put a bit of a barrier to getting them over the line? Will we benefit from having somebody in country trying to push those negotiations a bit more in the face?
We absolutely, being on the ground helps. We try to find in-country partners that are connected, that are able to help us with those actions. But certainly having our own staff on the ground, is very beneficial. We do have staff that travel around, so they're not permanently based in a country, but they do move around. So we have a few guys out there that are running around, going in. So when it needs it, there's somebody in the country that's having the right meetings in the right time.
Okay. All right. So if there are no further questions, I would invite everyone. I think there's some tea and coffee, and there may be some other refreshments later, and there's some equipment outside that that people can have a look at, and demonstrations. Yeah. Okay. Order. I declare the meeting closed.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed to the board from Westminster Group. Could I please ask attendees online not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. On behalf of the board of Westminster Group PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting, and good afternoon or good morning to you all.